Okay, and so with that, I'm going to get things started. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm playing host again. Samantha is not able to join us this week. She got some family stuff going on, but I have my friends Catherine Clement, Lori Emmons, and Jason. And I'm going to just shut up a minute, let them introduce themselves and say hi, and then we'll get started on the book, The Big Leap.
Hey, good morning. This is Jason from Florida. Great to be here. Looking forward to the book.
Good morning, Lori Emmons here. I'm glad you're here too, Jason.
Thank you.
Good morning, it's Catherine Clement, and I'll be reading this week. Let me see here if I can get the light where I can read. Okay, so can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Loud and clear.
All right, good. So chapter 1, preparing for your big leap, the one problem and how to solve it. How to begin. If you would like to make your journey to the zone of genius smooth and rapid, please take a moment now to answer 4 questions. Start with this fundamental one. Am I willing to increase the amount of time every day that I feel good inside? When I use the phrase feel good, I'm talking about a natural inner sense of well-being that's not dependent on outside factors such as what you've eaten or what you might be doing. It's important to begin with a willingness to feel good inside, because there's no sense enhancing other parts of your life. Other parts of your life at the expense of your inner well-being. I'd like you to spend more and more time every day enjoying an organic, deep feeling of body-mind wellness. That's what I'd like you to say yes to if you're so inclined. If you said yes to increasing the amount of time you feel good inside, let's extend the question to the outer aspects of your life. Am I willing to increase the amount of time that my whole life goes well? When I use the phrase whole life, I'm talking about your work, your relationships, your creative pursuits, and any other aspects that are central to your life. What I'd like for you, if you're willing, is for all of your life to flow more positively and easily for longer and longer periods of time. If you said yes to those questions, consider going one step further than merely increasing that amount of time. Am I willing to feel good and have my life go well all the time? At first glance, you might ask, who wouldn't say yes to all of those questions? Well, for many of us, the idea of all of this positive emotion seems far-fetched to begin with. It is easy for us to just assume that with the positive comes the negative. To that I say, why not get willing and see what happens? We humans have a long and wonderful history of transcending our beliefs about what's possible. In the early days of the steam-powered train, learned scientists urged capping the speed at 30 miles per hour because they believed that the human body exploded at speeds greater than that. Finally, some brave people risked going beyond that limiting belief and found that they did not explode. I did not know this. I think we're approximately at that same stage of development with regard to our ability to feel good and have our lives go well. In my life, I've discovered that if I cling to the notion that something's not possible, I'm arguing in favor of limitation. And if I argue for my limitations, I get to keep them. Ultimately, we have to ask ourselves, what's the payoff for arguing forcefully for our limitations? In the case of the steam engine, scientists were trying to protect people from harm. The limiting belief was well-intentioned, even though it was erroneous. From my experience with a lot of people, as well as myself, over the past few decades, I think we can put our minds at ease. Being willing to feel naturally good and have our lives go well is not a safety hazard. In my view, saying yes to that question is one of the most courageous actions a human being can take. In the face of so much evidence that life hurts and is fraught with adversity on all fronts, having a willingness to feel good and have life go well all the time is a genuinely radical act. Going into space is no longer radical. You can buy a ticket online. However, going into your inner depths where your most deeply held beliefs about what's possible reside counts in my book as a radical act. If we think it's even remotely possible to feel good all the time and have life go well all the time, we owe it to ourselves to find out how many of us can do it. Feeling good and having your life go well are wonderful outcomes, and I hope you say yes to both of them. However, I think they're just stepping stones and launch pads to something really spectacular. If you are willing to feel good and have things go well all the time, consider the ultimate step. Are you willing to take the big leap to your ultimate level of success in love, money, and creative contribution? Maynard's big leap. Maynard Webb said yes, and his example inspires me to this day. When I first met Maynard, he was the chief operating officer of eBay, serving during the same time period in which Meg Whitman was CEO. Almost everyone knows about eBay and its phenomenal impact, but fewer people know that Maynard Webb was one of the main architects of its meteoric success. By the time I met Maynard, he had already earned the respect not only of the employees and shareholders of eBay, but also of the larger community of high-tech executives across the world. Yet, in my view, he was operating in his zone of excellence, not his zone of genius. He had already amassed a sizable fortune and could easily have rested on his laurels of his accomplishments at eBay. That's not the way Maynard Webb operates, though. He chose to confront his upper limit problem and make the big leap into his zone of genius. He saw how staying within the world of eBay would be staying within his comfort zone. Comfort zone is no place for a person like Maynard Webb, and I hope not for you either. Your true home and Maynard's is in the zone of genius. It's the only place where we can fully celebrate and express the gifts we've been given. Maynard's big leap took him out of the comfortable niche that had made him wealthy and into the unknown of a new startup company, Live Ops, which is revolutionizing the field of customer service. As CEO of Live Ops, Maynard has the pleasure of knowing that when he opens his office door every day, he is opening new territory in himself and in the world. He's using himself fully, using everything he's learned to make a bigger difference in the world. Now contrast Maynard's story with that of a person I didn't get to know until after he ran head on into his upper limit. Dr. Richard Jordan had created a successful small business that attracted the attention of a larger firm. The firm made him an offer of $3 million for his business, plus a generous 2-year employment contract for himself. After weeks of negotiation, they were on the verge of signing the deal. Then, one morning, Dr. Jordan woke up with some last-minute concerns. The main one being that the new employment contract offered him 2 fewer weeks of vacation than he was used to taking. He got into an angry confrontation with the negotiator over this detail, which resulted in a letter from the company stating that due to the force of your remarks, they were no longer interested in acquiring the business. In a letter to me, Dr. Jordan said, in that phone call, I waved goodbye to $3 million in cash, salary, and incentives. Fortunately, Dr. Jordan was able to learn from that experience. His letter continued, over the next few years, I would awaken many nights with a knot in my stomach. Then I finally found the diamond in the dust. After much work and introspection, I discovered that what I was really saying to that man was, wait a minute, $3 million? That's way more than I'm worth. I cannot allow this. He decided to use the experience as, in his words, the $3 million gift. He formed 2 wonder questions to use in his life going forward. How much love and abundance am I willing to allow? And how am I getting in my own way? These questions cleared the way through his upper limit problem, and ultimately he sold the business to another buyer. The story was a happy ending money-wise, but more important, Dr. Jordan shows us how to turn dust into diamonds by understanding the upper limit problem at work in this kind of situation. Another person might have continued to blame the other company or himself and gone on down the path to bitterness and despair. Instead, Dr. Jordan had the insight and courage to ask big questions and savor the big rewards that come along with them. Do you want me to continue, or do you want to stop? Or
I think we could stop here. I think we might have stuff we can end then, because that way then when we next week come back, we can then focus, like you're saying, focus on you and bring that around into it and see how that plays into it maybe.
Yeah, that's a good place to stop. That's
So
really interesting.
go ahead, Jason. Continue if you have some other thoughts.
Well, it's those are 2 really interesting, contrasting stories, and it really kind of opens up the discussion to being introspective and trying to figure out, where our upper limits are, where we're holding ourselves back.
Well, I'll go in, and I like how he leads into this, kind of coaxing you into it, into looking at the stages, I guess, so to speak, of, moving yourself more and more closer to maybe being able to get to that next levels, so to speak, where in the beginning he goes, am I willing to increase the amount of time every day that I feel good inside? And it's like with anything, you have to kind of start somewhere, and sometimes you have to kind of start small so that way you can build upon that momentum. But I also like it when he says here, when I use the phrase feel good, I'm talking about a natural inner sense of well-being that's not dependent on outside factors, such as what you've eaten or what you might be doing, or even other out. And I'm going to go a little further, other outside situations or instances, or even your other feelings, because, sometimes we can go with that intention of, that sense of well-being and trying to have it not be dependent on outside factors. But I think for me, a lot of times it seems to be dependent on outside factors. So for me, I think, starting in this first step, am I willing to increase the amount of time every day that I feel good inside? Is something you kind of have to work at. You have to kind of learn to grow, I guess, and encapsulate and get to that point where it becomes more natural, to where you can keep outside factors from influencing it. So that way, as he says, you have more time every day. And, and also he says it's important to begin with a willingness to feel good inside. And I think that's the big issue that people have, because later on he talks about, because there's no sense in enhancing other parts of your life at the expense of your inner well-being. I'd like you to spend more and more time every day enjoying an organic, deep feeling of body, mind, wellness. If you said, excuse me, so, and then, but you have to work at it too. It's like anything, you have to develop, kind of like muscles when you're working out, you have to develop those muscles to build that muscle memory to remember. So you have to build that body mind memory, I guess, to work on that. So that way it becomes more natural. And then I think that leads into the next part. Am I willing to increase the amount of time that my whole life goes well? So from there, it seems to just grow as you take those little steps, but you have to work at it. Any other thoughts?
I agree that, that's a great place where he's starting with those questions, because it really does sort of kind of coax you into the whole mindset of it, and ask some very poignant questions about, feeling how you feel and your willingness to, to feel a certain way, and then brings up the prospect of our control over our feelings, and our willingness to have control over our feelings, and our willingness to let go of the beliefs or the circumstances that cause us to have feelings that maybe are getting in the way of us being able to feel good more of the time. There's and he brushes on it somewhere in the book about how we kind of hold on to those things that happen in our lives that cause us some anguish, or cause us to not be happy, or to feel something else. And I was just kind of, I think that is a very purposeful statement, because we tend to allow those things to mold us in one way or the other, and give ourselves up to these situations in our lives, and instead of taking a willful direction, and taking responsibility for our feelings, kind of like when you grieve over something that's monumental in our life that happens, and you kind of feel like, well, if I just go on about my day as if nothing happened, or if I just move on from this as if it didn't happen, then it sort of makes everything that I lost less meaningful in some way. And so you kind of want, there's this kind of like feeling of, maybe if you, even though you want to let go and move forward, it's sort of like you're disrespecting the whole thing that was the loss that you suffered, or the loss that someone else suffered, by not reliving it every day, or thinking about it and internalizing it every single day, and that energy can continue on throughout every day of our life if we continue to let that happen. But like what you're saying, it takes work to do something with that, put that in its place, and then move on from it. and make the choice, realize that we can make the choice, and that it's okay to start feeling good, and at some point, and move on from it. And that can be very, that's, for me, it's been difficult, so I can see that it can be difficult, just that first question, and just um coming to terms with that.
I was going to say, but you bring up a couple good points about things that we're holding on to, or things that we feel that are significant and have meaning, and we don't want to lose that meaning. But I think, going back to some other books that we talk about, one, what we say to ourselves when we talk to ourselves, two, the importance of going back and understanding those things are aspects and facets of our life, and putting them where they belong at the appropriate time, so that way we can move on with our life. And saying we don't have to minimize it. We don't have to minimize the experience or what happened or what it was about. And we don't even have to forget about it. But like you said, there's some things that we hold on to, and sometimes we hold on to it for our whole life, and it traps us, from getting to this first question: am I willing to increase the amount of time that my whole life goes, or am I willing to increase the amount of time every day that I feel good inside? You got to get to that first point, where you can take those instances, those outside instances and things that happen that are part of your life, feel them, go through them, but also know that is that part of your life, and at the right moment, recognize it, accept it, put it in its place, and go back to, getting back to the feeling good without minimizing that. And I think that's where a lot of us, lose that ability. And also going back to, a couple of the things that over the last couple of books, I think we get comfortable in those places too. It feels, hate to use the analogy I'm going to use, but I'm going to use it. It feels like that old, nice, comfortable blanket that when we wrap it, ourselves, and we're warm and we're comfy, and it's just so soothing, we just slide right into it, not realizing that we're just pulling that back over us, and it's affecting us. It's doing what we want it to do, but is it really doing what we need it to do, so to speak? So I think sometimes, understanding these things and being able to say, hey, I'm wanting to move on and bring this into my life, and be cognizant of it and understand it, so I can better maintain it and process it for future instances too. So that way, when future stuff comes, we can recognize them for what they're worth, go through them, understand them. But it might be easier then to get through that process of getting back to, I want to get back to, increasing the amount of time every day that I feel good inside. And then that way you can keep moving to those next levels. Anybody else?
Well, it's an interesting way to start the book. And, for a lot of people that are just going through life on autopilot, they don't even think about a question such as this. They don't think about intentionally trying to feel good. They're just like going through their day. You know what I mean? And for some people, because as he brings up a little bit later in the reading, some people are so ingrained, and we've talked about this in our talks before. We appear to live in this universe that is based on duality, and so a lot of people our beliefs are that if we can't feel good all the time, that life happens, and there's no way to feel good all the time, especially with everything going on in the world. Who can feel good all the time? So that's a huge leap to ask somebody to feel good all the time. And yet everything that we have studied, every book that we have studied, has pointed us to this same place of feeling, getting to the end point. In other words, instead of doing all this stuff so that you can feel good, just feel good in the beginning, and that you have to feel good in order to feel good. Like, you know what I mean? So it's interesting. It's also really interesting to me because I'm reading another book that it kind of begins in the same way, and yet I think they're going to go in two completely different places, but we'll see. So it's really exciting for me because I'm not reading ahead in either one. So it's really it'll be interesting to see how they coincide. But one of the things that he brings up here that is huge is that there seems to be, and we've discussed this before, there's this subconscious that kind of controls us, and that's our chest of everything, every experience that's happened to us in our life, right? That's our subconscious, and it only knows how to you know react from the past, basically, from things that we've gone through that it has defined as this, that, or the other. It's categorized those things. And so oftentimes when we're just living our life on autopilot, every decision, everything is based off of that subconscious. Then there are people that are living consciously and creating consciously. And it does appear, gosh, I get so many tingles in my body. It's not, it appears that they are working from a different place. They're working from their higher self consciousness. They may not call it that, okay, because there's a lot of different ways to get there and define it and talk about it and explain it, because everybody hears it differently. So you kind of have to throw it out a lot of different ways, but it's still working from that that place of genius. Think about Elon Musk and these freaking, I don't know what they are, trillionaires by now, like these people that have so much money that they have more money than like most of the population of the world all put together. These people aren't working from their fractured self. Now, do you think that they've just gone through years and years of therapy and healed all of that? No. They've jumped. They've learned how to work from that higher place of genius that we all have. And we all have access to that, but we just don't access it. So I'm really curious. And for me, I define that as intuition. And you can, everybody would have their own definition of that place of genius, where where things come to them, God speaks to them and gives them an idea maybe for a invention. Oh my gosh, I get so many ideas for inventions. It's crazy. And I think it's a matter of learning how to get into that zone. And part of getting into that zone is feeling good. So it's a great way to start the book.
Yeah, and it's also a very challenging concept to know that there is such a place, a different dimension or something, because somehow in everything I deal with, inside my inner being and all of that, I still am happy to be here. I am wanting to be full of life, and life happens. Past things that have happened and current things that have happened that seem to be out of your control, and to still be happy and comfortable with life as it is, being in the moment. My intuition doesn't get messages like that. I'm definitely wanting to take a leap, since being trapped on the second floor for a month so far because the elevator is broken, is a mechanical thing, and being disabled, I can't get up and down the stairs. How are you supposed to? I can't help but laugh the whole thing. It all happens for a reason or whatever, that with the things that we have studied. What am I trying to say? That somehow you have to maintain that inner peace, that everything's going to be okay and everything happens for a reason, and it all depends on your response to it more than the circumstances. Am I going to let 14,000 events change my attitude, my opinion, my outlook, my circumstances? Stuff just happens. Shit just happens. I mean, gotta say it that way.
Well, I think you just brought up a great point in a roundabout way, an illustration of, am I willing to increase the amount of time every day that I feel good inside? You could be like maybe some of the other people in the stuff who are similar to you, or who may be able to get up and down the stairs, but they might be complaining more than you because of the inconvenience of, oh, now I have to go up and down the stairs to get in and out of this place. And they're somebody that is a lot more unhappy about the stuff that's not in their control than you are, because you're sitting there going, okay, well, I already have a lot that's not in control of my life anyway. I'm not in control of my body sometimes, but I have to still function and take that and accept it and still feel good about myself, and not let it be the overriding thing that controls my life. And so I think you right now are, a nice little example for us of, without knowing it, how, being more willing to increase feeling good about yourself, because in some ways you've had to learn how to do that, whereas others of us, I'm going to say, we probably have had those opportunities, but we may not have accepted it or been willing to change and realize that we have a little bit more control within how we thought and how we approach it and how we look at it. And that does the complaining or anything really change it either? You know, and
Exactly. All the complaining in the world is not going to change it. For instance, friends that, excuse me, are just beside themselves. But you can't, this is not acceptable and all that. And I'm like, how is it not acceptable? There's nothing I can do. I can't manufacture a part to come here and install it and all of that. It's not just that, it's about taking things for granted, that they're going to be just the way you think it's what you're used to, or it's the old serenity prayer, accept the things you cannot change and deal with it, and still not become a grouchy old wicked witch or something. I don't know. I can always find I don't want to say always. I try to find the good in every situation. That's the only way I can deal with it.
Girl, you and I are freaking masters. Are you kidding?
Not kidding at all. And I'm happy to be in this army with you.
Like we are, this lifetime for us, man, has it taught us that over and like every day. And I was actually just thinking about that this morning because, you know, sometimes our self-talk is not wonderful. And I've been, I don't catch myself, you know, telling myself bad talk often, but sometimes I do. And I wasn't this morning actually, and I don't, but I was just sitting there thinking, wow, look at the number of situations that you've been put into in this life, just this one life, where what was presenting itself as reality like really sucked. And yet like really sucked, and yet you were able to, and I'm talking to myself, you know, and I'm talking to you, Lori, you were able to find peace and joy and recognize the beauty of life in those moments, even though the situations, and everybody experiences this to some point. I'm not trying to exclude you guys. It's just that Lori and I have had some extra doses put on us in this lifetime. And I was thinking, and then it occurred to me, oh my gosh, like Lori and I, we are freaking masters, man.
That's funny. The phrase, how does it go about expert of everything and master of none? I don't remember the phrase, but it's just a matter of choosing. But then things seem so out of reach that the limiting beliefs that we have are so rooted deep in your subconscious. So you have a conscious, what you're aware of around there, your subconscious, things that that inner existence or whatever seems to cause or put limitations on, the limiting beliefs. I just cracked up when they're talking about that our bodies would explode when we go this fast, or that, you know, walk off the edge of the flat earth and that type of thing that we've learned differently. And so I constantly have to talk to myself and wonder what it is I'm thinking or not thinking, you know. Where am I screwing up? What am I taking for granted? What am I expecting? You know, is just such a deep subject.
Yeah,
ahead, Jason.
what we want and what our subconscious tells us to expect can be, you know, completely two different things. And I find it so interesting that that, like you were saying, Dan, are about the cozy, you know, blanket. It's like our comfort zones can end up being a place that we really don't want to be, but that we're used to, a place where we're used to dealing with things from. It's almost like we wouldn't know what to do with ourselves if everything was working out perfectly for ourselves. You know, if everything was going fantastic and amazing and all nothing but good things coming left and right and front and center and up and down, everything just wonderful, we wouldn't know what to do with ourselves, and we'd almost want to shelter back into our comfort zone. And I liken it to this feeling I get sometimes where when things are really going really well, then I start to get a little bit nervous, like what's going to happen to derail this kind of a thing, you know. I think that's a subconscious a reaction to, you know, kind of wanting to protect myself, but from something that's unknown, or something that maybe doesn't even exist until I start looking for it and thinking about it, and then maybe I end up attracting it because I'm not moving forward like I was when everything was going well, you know. If that makes any sense. I think the feelings of the having good feelings, it's almost like you're talking about, Catherine, you're talking about like Elon Musk and these billionaires that have so much, you know, so much money. And we're talking about the guy from eBay and how these people that seem like they're working from a different, like a higher level. I really kind of, yeah, I think there's two different types of people there in regards to that. There's people that have lived their whole lives and never had anything that has gotten in their way, because they've kind of grown up just believing that they were something special, and every, you know, nothing's going to get in their way, and so they are always expecting great outcomes. And that's fine, but I think that there's a big difference between those people and people that have made millions, or, you know, struggled in life and then made their fortune, and then knocked down and then remade their fortune, you know, gone through that, from that rags to riches sort of thing. I think two totally different perspectives. I can totally see how someone can kind of grow up thinking that they are, you know, believing that they're a genius, and then so just exuding all this confidence, and then attracting all that opportunity, and never having any issues, because they don't even give any negativity a possibility of existence in their life. And that in a way makes sense to me. But it's like you were also saying, Lori, that there's, you know, some of us are realizing that you know, stuff happens and outside of our control, that you know, and maybe it's our fault for giving too much time to those things. But it's, there's these outside influences that can get in the way. It's just whether or not I think a lot of it goes back to this question of our willingness to be happy, our willingness to move on, instead of saying get back to reality, kind of like someone said recently, is go forward into reality, into a new existence of understanding where you are now once something happened, and after putting it into perspective and decide, like you were saying, knowing what to do with those feelings and putting them in a place. So that I was just having this discussion with a family member earlier in the week about how I realized I wasn't trying to spend so much time on thinking about a certain situation, but I did want to put it in a place to where I felt comfortable that if something like that came up again, that I would be able to more quickly put it into perspective and then move on. So I was at the same time not trying to attract more of it, not trying to give it more space in my life than it warranted, even though it was significant, but trying to really kind of having a way to deal with it and those type of situations, so that tough situations, so that it can go ahead and I can go move forward with confidence that if it happens again, it won't derail me and ruin something it's something that I've got, that I'm working on already. So I think there's that, we have these expectations that, like you're saying, these cliches that, hey, stuff happens, or Murphy's Law, or, these different ideas that, when things are going good, that's when something's going to happen, or, these ideas that we have to really let go of and allow us to feel good. And when we feel good, then that opens up these channels for genius thought and attracting good things into our lives, and everything that we truly would truly desire.
That's what I'm waiting for, those genius thoughts. Maybe I already have them, I don't know. And maybe the whole thing is like a hologram. We're stepping into a different dimension, into the fifth dimension instead of the third dimension, and trying to sort out all the limiting beliefs, and maybe this higher level or whatever, we're seeing it backwards, and maybe it's worse, that more money is not the answer. It's just mind-boggling. You can't keep up with it all. It's a hologram. You're conscious, you're subconscious, and you're super conscious. I'm just trying to sort it all out still. You're right, Catherine. Definitely superheroes, that's it.
I was going to jump out, and I think all three of you have kind of hit on, some good points. That one, I think we are our own, in a lot of ways, our own worst enemy, because, like, going back to what you were saying, Jason, sometimes we'll be humming along and things will be going good in our lives, and I know I've done this, but I'm sitting there going, okay, when is, because we have gotten in the past so used to having something happen, because maybe we weren't as understanding of, that we have a little more control and say, and that it can keep going. We just have to keep working in that. I think once we understand it and once we recognize it, we can help foster continuing in that, space and time to continue that, but we're not accustomed to it. We're also not comfortable in that yet. So that's when we let our thoughts think, okay, this is too good. Something's bound to happen. What's going to happen? What, when is it going to happen? And then get back to like what you were saying, we kind of short circuit it, and cause it to, be that lightning rod to attract that other back into it, and instead of rather than repelling it. But we also get comfortable in that our comfort zone. So we actually kind of want that, because that's what we're so used to. And that's how we know how to operate to continue trying to move forward. And then we say, oh, well, there's this, that the past was better than this. I want to get back to that. But then, and we keep going on that vicious, hamster wheel type thing, continue going around. And, for people like Catherine and Lori, they, in some ways, have learned to work in that conduit of, there are a lot of things that I can't control, but I can control me and how I move forward. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we all need to learn is I can't control all that, but I can control me. And if I can control me and keep in that, vein of, wanting to, increase the amount of time that I'm happy every day, or stay in that love motion as we, describe, talk about in the other books. I think that's where we all want to be, but somehow because of life's, for lack of a better, in a way, life's training, so to speak, because we've been trained through what we've heard from others and people and what's been, rather than listening to our own. And I think that kind of goes back to what you were saying a little bit, Jason, that, and I think Lori and Catherine, that some of these people like Elon Musk who, they're, you look at them and you think they're on such a different plane. And that maybe even in that plane where I think some people have failed successfully, I'll put it that way, because somehow they should have failed by all sense of means, but somehow because of their own ability to not accept that and say, no, I'm not accepting this, plus to attract, like you were saying, people, Jason, attract maybe others around them because of their mindset. And those are the people that allowed them to have that success. It wasn't necessarily success that they did, but they ended up attracting those around them that helped give them that success. And then they're too blind to realize that that's what happened. And so even in their failures, they just don't accept it. And they say, or maybe growing up, all they ever heard was, even though their parents might have failed, maybe from their parents, because of their parents' failure, they always kept telling them, no, you can do it. You can do it. No matter what you do, you can do it. You can achieve, And so somehow they took that to heart. And I think some of us, we get lost in that middle space of, trying to figure it out. And we keep going back to that, hamster wheel of we're on a good, we're on that good lane speeding forward, and all of a sudden, oh, well, this is going too fast. Let me jump off and get back on the hamster wheel again. So I think that's, some of where books like this can help us look at that and say, oh, no, I want to jump back there and keep increasing this.
Yeah, it's like we all almost are set a regulator to where we're only going to allow ourselves to succeed so much, and then we're going to pull back and we're going to justify it with these different reasons as to why will allow ourselves to stay back into our comfort zone. We won't exceed that speed limit of 30 miles an hour because these things might happen. And then we're like, well, we'll justify it because we're okay with it, but here, and then we feel good about it, and then we end up wanting more, so we try, and then we get back into that routine again of that circular hamster wheel. It seems like we've got to break ourselves from that, and I think that's so important. Just feeling good, being in a good mindset, and being able to focus on that good mindset for long periods of time is so important. At least from what I've been reading about the law of attraction, and really what just kind of makes sense, in that if you're feeling good things are kind of bound to happen. You're going to be looking for good things. If you're going to notice more good things to feel more good about. But it seems like, and what I've kind of been hearing is that if you're unable to maintain a positive, good feelings for a long enough period of time, then you start to think negatively, or even just have those cliches pop in your head, and then that can pinch off and negate all of the good work that you've done on that positive mindset. So I think we need to be aware of that. And I think that's kind of what these questions are getting to, is like, where are we mentally allowing ourselves to fall back to our comfort zone, and how willing are we to push through, and these questions help us to recognize where we are having those self-limiting beliefs, like you said, I think, Lori, in regards to these, in regards to our feelings and our focus. So, yeah, good points, everybody.
Well,
I can't.
beliefs. Oh, go ahead, Lori.
Go ahead.
No, honey, go ahead.
It's the Mexican standoff again. Oh, not making a racial comment there. Now I've lost it. So go ahead, Catherine.
Oh God, I don't even know if I remember what I was gonna say. So what I was gonna say is, beliefs are based on thoughts, and thoughts are not real. Like, we think that they're real, and we base our reality not on what reality actually is, but what our thoughts about reality actually is. And oftentimes those thoughts are coming from, a belief that we acquired when we were 5 years old or something. Like, it's outdated material, you know? And so we really have to, we do create our reality in because we create our experience, and we have to learn how to do that, not based on that outdated material. And it's so interesting because it's so easy to prove, because how many times look back in your life and one piece of information changed your entire concept about something, or your entire understanding about something. Like, you had you were just dead set, had a certain belief about something, whatever it was, or someone, you thought something about someone or whatever. Think about back in your life, how many times has this happened that you had a thought that you believed in that thought 100%, 150, and then 1 second later, because you had a certain piece of information, something was revealed to you that completely changed that and made that you realize that that thought was false. How many false thoughts do we experience? And yet we call that reality. That's what we call our reality. And that's why 4 people can be in a room and they're having 4 different experiences and 4 different realities. That's why eyewitness accounts are like the least, they're not good. You know what I mean? So, yeah, these thoughts, and it's interesting because every book that we have read has pointed to this fact, just in a different way. So anyway, I know we're past the hour and I'll quit rambling on. It'll be a great book. It's gonna, I'm really curious to see how it parallels with this other one.
Well, maybe that other book is the one we can do next after this, and then do contrasts of what the two, depending on your input from that and what you think. So with that,
Wait. I did have something else to say. I'm sorry, Dan. I'll
oh,
keep
no
it quick.
problem. No problem.
I totally forgot. I meant to say that everyone, including you, Lori, has intuition. Everyone can access that superconscious. You termed it so well. Everyone can access that. And that is the difference. Those people are working on a different level. They are working from that superconscious level as opposed to that subconscious level. And every one of us can do that. And I've seen it proven through, because I do remote viewing and stuff. This information of all time, space, like there are no limitations to the information that you have access to through that superconscious. But people do not utilize it. Most people do not utilize it in their lives because it's such an upper limit problem. To put it in the terms of this book, people cannot accept that they can actually access information from time. There's no limits as far as time, what we consider time, or space. You can observe something. It is learnable skills that these people have that the majority of the people don't. And I will be so happy when we are all working from that space. And I love you guys, and I want you all to have an amazing week.
And you took all the words I was trying to say and put them succinctly. Thank you, Catherine. Love you, sister. Love you all.
Yeah, thanks, Catherine, for reading. I just want to say, also that, yeah, it's that our thoughts, they say our thoughts are things they do, and I believe that's because they have such an impact on our lives. And like you said, they can create a perception of reality for ourselves that's maybe not correct. But they also, our thoughts, especially if we spend a lot of time thinking the same thoughts, then they can sort of manifest. But I think that's kind of what hopefully this book's going to kind of tell us, how to clear out the clutter so we can make the big leap and start believing in the good things that are to come. was just thinking about, we were talking about Elon Musk and all these very successful people. I think one thing that they learn early in life is to not gravitate towards and not spend much time thinking about the negative possibilities. And the way that they do that is early in life, they go ahead and get themselves some good lawyers. So they have some good lawyers on retainer. So they don't have to think about the negative things that'll possibly, they just, for any good idea that they come across, they get it in motion, and then they run it by their lawyer and let their lawyer figure out if there's going to be a problem with it. So they can focus on the positive, good stuff, and they let their lawyers do it. But if you're like me, when I was younger, we were growing up, it was always this negative connotation about lawyers. Oh, lawyers are sharks. Lawyers can't be trusted, and lawyers are, so the layman, the regular guy thinks, so, lawyers are expensive. They can't be trusted, but to these professionals and successful people, they're probably like, that's their ace up their sleeve is their group of lawyers that they can bounce their ideas off of. So it's all about how you, I guess, handle things and what we decide to, the thoughts that we decide to carry around in our mind all the time. I really do believe if you think more positively on a regular basis, so it's a good thing. So I'm definitely willing to answer these questions in a positive way and think more positively and feel good on a more regular basis, and even all the time. So I hope this book helps me to learn how to do that. Really appreciate the discussion, and I love you guys. Y'all have a great weekend.
Okay, and with that, that's it for the Saturday Morning Mastermind. We are in The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. We're still in chapter 1, and hopefully we'll all think about this one little thought. Am I willing to increase the amount of time every day that I feel good inside? So with that, take that, carry that forward, and then we can keep working towards those other 3 questions that he has. But I think that's a good place to start. Love you guys and look forward to seeing you guys next week. So have a good week, and that's it for the Saturday Morning Mastermind. Bye.